Trade a jade necklace for wine? Did General really trade his jade necklace for wine? Impossible, General has no reason to do that. General, what are you talking about? I don't understand. The jade necklace is so important to you. The old housekeeper looked at Feng Lianyi and then at Tianya as if he somewhat understood something. He sneered and said, yes, the jade necklace is so important to you, General. You couldn't have just given it to someone else. Just now, Maiden Lianyi said that you had given it to her, but suddenly the jade necklace that you gave to her is found inside young Lady Helian's dress. Helian Yu was dumbfounded. With her brain, she really could not see that the old housekeeper was being sarcastic. She stomped her foot and hurriedly explained, Grandfather Tianya, don't listen to their nonsense. Feng Lianyi's jade necklace is made of obsidian stone. She framed Xiaoqing and me and claimed that we have stolen her necklace. Grandfather Tianya, you're a wise man. You will not believe it, right? Tianya closed his eyes, trembling. His granddaughter had come to him, but she was treated like this? As soon as Tianya opened his eyes, a murderous aura diffused the banquet hall. The housekeeper is right. This jade necklace is very important to me. How could I have given such an important item to an outsider like Feng Lianyi? Outsider. This word made Feng Lianyi's face turn paler. She lifted her head and stared at Tianya. She had spent so many years in General Manor, and in the end, she was only an outsider? Do you know why I gave the jade necklace to Feng Ruqing? Well, I'll tell you now. Because Feng Ruqing? She's my granddaughter. She's my dearest granddaughter. Feng Ruqing is my granddaughter. She's my dearest granddaughter. This sentence exploded in Feng Lianyi's mind, and it would not go away for a long time. Her eyes were filled with shock as she quickly turned to Tianya. Impossible. This is impossible. General, you must be mistaken. How could someone like Feng Ruqing be? Feng Lianyi suddenly fell silent. A cold, murderous aura enveloped her, causing her to tremble in fear. Feng Lianking's mouth was so wide open that he could stuff an egg inside it. Me for extra chapters. The shock in his eyes was so obvious and unbelievable. Master said, Feng Ruqing, she is his granddaughter? He suddenly thought of Tianya's furious rage just now. If Feng Ruqing was really his granddaughter, then he actually deserved to be slapped by Tianya. General Tianya, what did you just say? Qi Feng was stunned. It was too shocking. Feng Ruqing, she's my granddaughter, my long-lost granddaughter. It's a shame that I didn't recognize her when I first saw her so much so that she had to suffer so much bullying and harm. Tianya glanced at everyone present, and his gaze finally stopped at Lu Yi's face. Lu Yi took a few steps back. His body could no longer even stand firm. Feng Ruqing, she's General's granddaughter? What I've done, I've killed General's granddaughter. He liked Feng Lianyi, but General was his savior. Without General Tianya, he would have died a long time ago, and he would never have gotten what he had today. General. A cold sweat broke out on Lu Yi's forehead. He raised his hand and wiped it timidly. But I didn't know she's your... Get out. Tianya kicked Lu Yi out, refusing to listen to his nonsense. He glanced at the people present again, and this time his cold gaze fell on Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi's head buzzed like 1,000 thunderbolts. She clenched her fists tightly, her heart aching to the point it was numb. Feng Ruqing is General's granddaughter. She's her granddaughter. I don't believe it. Feng Lianyi, Tanya's face was expressionless, his voice cold and harsh. Do you know how strong the blood ties are? I didn't recognize her at first glance, but I still felt affectionate. That's why I gave her the jade necklace, and it was something that belonged to her. I didn't have the time to give it to Feng Tianwu back then, and I was afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep something precious like the spirit-gathering stone. Tianya had already been making preparations even before Feng Tianwu got married, and he had stolen the spirit-gathering stone from the chief manor of Tianshan Manor. But in the end, he still did not pass it to Feng Tianwu, because he knew that Feng Tianwu would get in so much trouble if he kept the spirit-gathering stone with him. Even the one from Tianshan Manor who lost the spirit-gathering stone cried to death and had come to Tianya several times, fighting with him to get the stone back, which showed What kind of disaster would be brought to Luyun Kingdom if the world knew about the spirit-gathering stone, perhaps? Even the rules that he had set back then could not stop the fight to get this precious item. In the end, after going round and round, the spirit-gathering stone finally returned to its rightful owner. Great. Feng Lianya's face turned pale. She froze and fell to the ground helplessly. Feng Liany, I took you back then, and today, I will kill you with my own hands. No one can bully my precious granddaughter. No one. Feng Lianqing was dumbfounded. Me for extra chapters. Maiden Feng. She's Master's granddaughter. Feng Liany had done such a disgusting thing, and he went to plead with Maiden Feng for her. Perhaps, Maiden Feng did not kill him back then because she respected his master. This time, looking at Tian Ya's eyes, which were already filled with murderous intent, Feng Lianqing did not say another word and remained silent. Feng Liany never learned from her mistakes and continued to do evil. Even if Feng Ruqing were not his master's granddaughter, he would still choose to trust Feng Ruqing and would not plead for Feng Liany again. After all, what Feng Liany had done was unforgivable. A long sword suddenly appeared in front of Tianya. Feng Liany trembled, and she crawled over to Tianya in panic, her voice cracked. General, I've done nothing wrong. I offended the little prince only to save the innocent. It was Feng Ruqing. She knew that she was your granddaughter and had used it to threaten him and put all the blame on me. As for the jade necklace, I know nothing about it. Indeed, it was all Qi Fang's fault. Qi Fang had made her misunderstand and say such words in front of General. She was innocent. Insolent. With monstrous energy, Tianya brought his long sword down, cutting off Feng Lianya's arm. Blood stained Feng Lianya's sleeves, and the pain made her face paler. She looked like she was about to faint. But somehow, even though she was in pain, there was a faint fragrance of spirit herb wafting under her nose, making her unable to faint. Fu Qin sneered as he looked down at Feng Liany, who was lying on the ground. No one else could see it. There was a faint green mist on his fingertips. Everyone in the banquet hall was wide awake, all because of this mist. Feng Liany, you've made a lot of mistakes, and how dare you frame my precious granddaughter? Tianya stepped forward, approaching Feng Liany. My granddaughter is always right. You are the one to be blamed. There is no way my granddaughter would do such a thing, and I won't blame her even if she has done it. 1 inch besides. Why would I trust an outsider like you and not my granddaughter? Feng Liany, do you really think you can become a member of General Manor? Feng Lianya's body stiffened. Her face had long since lost its color, and her pale lips were trembling. In this life, she had always thought that General Tianya was fair and rational. He would not blindly protect someone unless that person was really innocent. Only now did she understand that Tianya was actually quite protective. But the person he was protecting was not her. Even Feng Lianqing was a little surprised, as if he was getting to know Tianya for the first time. But then he suddenly realized something. Yes, everyone has passions and desires, and so does Master. Maiden Feng is his granddaughter, so no matter what happens, he would protect her first, regardless of whether she was right or wrong. Such a person was like someone who indeed had blood ties with him. Feng Lianqing smiled faintly as his gaze fell on Tianya. Feng Liany, Helian Yu lifted her head and walked toward Feng Liany arrogantly. You were so arrogant just now. What has happened? Are you afraid to speak now? It was not that Feng Liany did not dare to speak. She was in so much pain that she could not even say anything. However, you really have good endurance. Your hand has been cut off, but you haven't faint from the pain. Tsk, only people with thick skin can do that. I admire you. Feng Liany bit her lips hard. She wished she could faint to block out all these pains. However, her mind was very clear, and she could not seem to faint at all. Yue, move aside. Tian Ya's face was expressionless. All right, me for extra chapters. Helian Yu obediently moved to the side with a bright and proud smile on her small face. She looked exactly like Tang Yin. Fu Qin looked at Helian Yu. There was a slight resemblance between Helian Yu's and Tang Yin's eyes. No wonder mother treats her nicely. Tanya lifted his hand. The long sword flashed again in front of him. floating in the air. The blade was as cold as the old man's pale face. Seeing that Tianya was about to slash at Feng Lianyi again, Fu Chen became anxious and hurriedly shouted, "Wait! You can't kill her." Tianya paused and looked back at Fu Chen. "Why?" Actually, Fu Chen bit his lips. "There are still some things that mother has to ask her personally. You can kill her later." Feng Lianyi slowly closed her eyes. So, Tianya was trying to kill her just now. Such an intense murderous intent, but she did not feel it. She had spent so many years in General Manor. Did he not have any pity or feelings for her at all? He wanted to kill a girl he had raised for over 20 years for the granddaughter he had never met. The banquet hall fell silent. Everyone was quiet. Even the chatty little prince did not say anything for a long moment. His fat face taut with fury. Pretty sister is actually Tianya's granddaughter. He would never forget that Tianya had severely beaten him up before. That was why he held a grudge against Feng Lianyi. However, if Tianya was his Feng Ruqing's grandfather, he had no choice but to forgive Tianya. The others were also silenced, especially those who had just bragged about Feng Lianyi. They were shivering in fear and wishing that they were somewhere else. None of them had ever thought that things would turn out like this. The funny thing was Feng Lianyi had even dared to claim that Tianya had given her the jade necklace, so, I really can't kill her? Tianya's pale face went blank after hearing Fu Chen's words. He hesitated for a moment and turned to look at Fu Chen. Mother said there are some things that only she can answer. Suddenly, Feng Lianyi laughed sarcastically. Feng Ruqing is treating me so badly. What makes you think I'll answer her questions? I'll never tell her whatever she wants to know. Feng Lianyi's eyes were filled with hatred. Up until now, Feng Lianyi was still blaming Feng Ruqing for everything that had happened, not thinking in the slightest that if she had had no intention to hurt Feng Ruqing in the first place, she would not have ended up where she was today. It was she who had asked for it. No one else was to be blamed. Well, since you refuse to answer her questions, I'd better just kill you now. Tianya waved his hand expressionlessly, sending Feng Lianyi flying out. Since she was already losing too much blood, she almost fainted from this. Me for extra chapters. Fortunately, Fu Chen had re-released his spiritual qi in time to keep her awake. Feng Lianyi bit her lip hard and did not say a word. There was no way she would do what Feng Ruqing wished. She would not let Feng Ruqing get what she wanted even if she had to die from it. Feng Lianyi did not know what Feng Ruqing wanted from her, but no matter what it was, she would not say anything. General, Lu Yi could not stand to see the pain on Feng Lianyi's face. Maiden Lianyi has made a big mistake this time, and the mistake she has committed is unforgivable, but, I beg you, General, please spare her life. Please, General. He violently hit his head on the ground, begging so hard that he did not care if his forehead was hurt and bleeding. Feng Lianyi was stunned. She did not expect that at such a time, Lu Yi would still plead for her. Perhaps, Lu Yi was the only person in General Manor who treated her sincerely. Everyone else, including Feng Lianqing, had said they would plead for her, but after they knew about Feng Ruqing's identity, all of them did not dare to say anything. Ridiculous. If it were not for the pain in her broken arm, Feng Lianyi would have laughed out loud. Even until now, she still would not admit her faults. Well, I'll keep Feng Lianyi's life because she must wait for my granddaughter to wake up to kowtow to her and admit her mistakes. Tianya's red robes lifted in the wind as he said domineeringly, if she doesn't wake up, Feng Lianyi will have to pay for it. Of course, whether Feng Ruqing could wake up or not, Feng Lianyi would still die in Tianya's hand in the end. He would not kill her now until his granddaughter woke up. Tianya glanced at Lu Yi, who was still kowtowing in front of him. He did not stop him and simply said coldly, your kowtowing shouldn't be to plead for Feng Lianyi, but you should reserve it until my precious granddaughter has woken up. Lu Yi's body stiffened. He raised his head, and his face was covered in blood. His eyes were filled with grievance. General, Maiden Lianyi, shut up. Tianya kicked him down violently and stepped on his chest, expressionlessly. You still have the heart to plead for others. Do you think I will forgive you for your crimes? Louis trembled as he slowly closed his eyes. The cold moonlight poured in from the door, illuminating his pale face. The banquet hall was silent. After a moment of silence, Louis opened his eyes and said, "General, I've violated the military rules, released the soul without permission, and mistakenly injured the young lady. I deserve to die, but am begging General to spare Maiden Liania's life. You can beat her or drive her out of the manor, but please, spare her life." Feng Liani had lost her arm. Even if she was really at fault for this, she had paid the price. "It should be enough. My granddaughter is still unconscious. Why should I let the person who hurt her go?" His granddaughter, who should be the noblest person in General Manor and beloved by thousands of people, but she had been harmed to such an extent by a servant girl. It was all because of him. He should not have been so kind to bring Feng Liani into General Manor. "General, if what Maiden Liani says is true, what if Feng Ruqing—" No. Before he could finish his sentence, Lu Yi felt something strangling him, making it difficult to breathe. The pressure in his chest began to increase, and it seemed like his heart might stop beating at any time. "I don't think my granddaughter is at fault. Besides, I trust my granddaughter. Me for extra chapters." Even a wild wolf knew how to protect its pups, more so him. No one had the right to criticize his granddaughter. He did not think that Feng Ruqing would frame Feng Liani. How would he be fit to be her grandfather if he did not even trust her? "Lu Yi, you better pray that Xiaoqing will be safe and sound. Otherwise, it'll make you suffer for the rest of your life." Lu Yi recoiled in horror, spitting a mouthful of blood. The pressure just now had broken his bones, and he could not even straighten his back. His eyes were filled with horror. Inside the manor, the moonlight was clear and cold. Feng Ruqing, dressed in red, was lying quietly on the bed. She was frowning, perhaps due to pain. Qing Zhu was dumbfounded as it looked at the bed, turning stiffly to the man next to it. "Master, what happened to Princess? This couple has left me in the manor and gone out to watch a good show but returned with Princess unconscious?" Nan Xian ignored Qing Zhu. He brushed Feng Ruqing's hair and stroked her pale face as grief and anger filled his eyes. He felt sad because of Feng Ruqing. At the same time, he was pissed at everyone in General Manor. Slowly, the man lowered his head and kissed her lips. He kissed her softly and warmly. "Qingya, I won't let anything happen to you. No one can hurt you. No one." At this moment, Feng Ruqing was in the middle of the sea. It was her spiritual sea. Not far away from her stood a handsome man staring coldly at Feng Ruqing. "Feng Ruqing, you better not fight with me for your body. I can still give you a place in this body. But if you try to fight me, maybe it'll just let your soul float away." Feng Ruqing smirked. "I'd like to know how you are going to make my soul float away." "You." The man's face sank as he raised his hand, setting off a storm that made violent waves in the sea that rushed toward Feng Ruqing. Feng Ruqing looked at the man calmly. The waves whipped up by the storm on the sea's surface suddenly disappeared as it reached Feng Ruqing. The man's eyes were cold as he sneered and said, "Ninth Emperor, there's no way you can stop me." "Oh," Feng Ruqing responded nonchalantly. "Why do you hate me so much? Just because I didn't take you as a disciple back then?" The man snorted. "Have you really forgotten all about it?" "Sorry, probably I drank too much Mengpa soup before reincarnation." The man was momentarily stunned. His smile grew even more sardonic. "Back then, when you said you would only accept female disciples, I didn't give up and had gone to you dressed as a woman. But what did you do? You said I was ugly and didn't want to take me in." The man was filled with anger. "Look at my face. Am I ugly? Everyone in the world thinks I'm stunning, and I won't let anyone tell me otherwise. You've become my enemy, and I'll make sure you admit to me that you were wrong for saying I'm ugly." Me for extra chapters. "And not only did you refuse to deny that I'm ugly, but you beat me up every time I went to see you. Your women were even worse, exposing me as a woman in disguise. I was so embarrassed that I had become the biggest joke in the world." The more the man spoke, the more agitated he became. His appearance was his biggest pride, and whoever insulted his looks was his sworn enemy. Feng Ruqing was slightly stunned. She stared at the man for a few seconds and said, "Well, you're indeed quite ugly." She had a handsome and stunning husband, and all the other men in this world were ugly in her eyes. Except for Jiao Ming and Chainer, they were the only men that she admitted were handsome and stunning. The man in front of her was indeed ugly compared to them. Unbearably ugly. Ninth Emperor, I'm going to kill you. The man went crazy, screaming and lunging at Feng Ruqing. Initially, he had wanted her to give her some space to survive in this body, but now he only had one thought. He was going to kill this damn woman. But, just as the man was about to rush toward Feng Ruqing, a black sword suddenly fell from the sky, violently sending waves of horror toward the man, pushing him back a few steps. The man was shocked. What is this thing? You seem to have forgotten that this is my body. Feng Ruqing smiled faintly and walked toward the man. I'm invincible here. The man looked at the black longsword with a pale and somewhat fearful expression. Feng Ruqing held the longsword in her hand. She smiled and walked toward the man. I have kept this sword in my dantian for quite some time, and it has never been stained with blood. Oh, I forgot. You don't have blood. The man's eyes were wary. Are you threatening me with this sword? He somehow felt an unprecedented threat when faced with this sword. This sense of danger caused his body to tremble, not daring to make drastic moves. Feng Ruqing smiled. Unfortunately, my sword is missing a sword's soul. You came just in time. The man stared at Feng Ruqing with widened eyes. He only tried to possess her body, but this woman wanted to make him a sword soul and trap him in this sword for the rest of his life. How could she be so vicious? Feng Ruqing could feel that her sword was excited. She released her hand, and suddenly the sword was like a black light, swiftly moving forward. The man could not retreat any further as there was a vast ocean behind him. He gritted his teeth tightly and finally summoned the courage to face the black sword. Suddenly, the black sword flashed in front of him with countless sword rays, causing him to tremble. His face turned pale. The sword rays sliced through his soul, making him cry out in agony. That pain was unbearable. No matter how strong his soul was, it could never endure it. Ninth Emperor, you vicious woman. You have insulted my looks, forcing me to abandon my body and hide in the talisman. And now, you want to make me a sword soul. I'll never let you go as long as I have the chance. Feng Ruqing smiled faintly. Unfortunately, you don't have the chance anymore. The black sword had been lacking a soul, so it hid in her dantian and refused to leave, making it hard for her to find a soul for this sword. This guy just happened to come at the right time. Me for extra chapters. Ninth Emperor, are you even still a Woma? You're obviously a woman, but why are you only recruiting female disciples? And you're blind. I'm so handsome, but you say I'm ugly. I wouldn't have gone against you if you hadn't insulted me in the first place. This vicious woman has no idea how important looks are to a good-looking person. You can insult my manners all you want, but not my face. The black sword did not stop moving, forcing him backward. The man was on the verge of tears. Ninth Emperor, what do you want? I'm the one who should ask that question. Feng Ruqing smiled. You said you wanted to possess my body, and now I'll do the same thing to you? The man snapped. You're the one who insulted me first, saying I'm ugly. Sorry, I don't remember that. How could she remember what happened 1,000 years ago? Now, all she knew was that this bastard was going to steal her body. What if this asshole used her body to hit on men to seek revenge? No, never. She would not let anyone do anything to hurt the state preceptor. Besides, this guy was dangerous. He looked like he was about to cry now, but no one knew what was on his mind. She had better turn him into a sword soul. The man suffered a lot of injuries from the sword's attack. He could not escape or leave Feng Ruqing's body and could only watch the black sword tirelessly attack him. Perhaps he was tired and wanted to slack off, but as soon as he did, the black sword suddenly turned into a tiny sword that instantly pierced into the man's forehead. This time, the man did not feel any pain. He only felt that his brain was about to explode, and his whole body froze. He had been possessed. Possessed by a sword. Ninth Emperor, I'm going to kill you. The man frantically rushed toward Feng Ruqing. His eyes were bloodshot. Unfortunately, a stabbing pain came from his forehead before he could reach Feng Ruqing. This stabbing pain instantly spread throughout his body, causing him to stop in his tracks. Feng Ruqing smiled. Haven't you always wanted to find a body to live in? My sword is perfect for you. The black sword buzzed as if responding to Feng Ruqing. The man wanted to cry. It had always been like this since 1,000 years ago. Every time he encountered the Ninth Emperor, nothing good would come from it. Every time he fought against her, the one who lost was always him. The man squatted down in pain and covered his face with his hands. I'm already so miserable. Why won't you just let me go? Feng Ruqing glanced at the man. Who's the one who won't let go? The man was speechless, as if indirectly admitting his fault. Thousands of years ago, it had always been him who had messed with the Ninth Emperor, but every time, the one who lost was him. The last time he did go a little too far. He molested the Ninth Emperor's servant and almost slept with her. The Ninth Emperor was so angry and hunted him all over the mainland. But he was already so miserable. Was that not enough? He had wanted to ask the question but never did. Me for extra chapters. It was because he could already guess the answer. After all, the Ninth Emperor was indeed very selective. The female disciples around her were all stunningly beautiful. Even her servants were so pretty. However, that was not a reason for her to humiliate him. At least he was no worse than those women when he dressed up as a woman. Actually, I can be your sword soul, and I'll even help you fight, but you're not allowed to insult my looks again. You have to praise me by saying that I am handsome. Feng Ruqing glanced at him. Do you think you have the right to bargain with me? Is it so hard to just give me a compliment? Well, I will only praise my state preceptor for his good looks. No one is as good-looking as him. The state preceptor was the most stunning man in her life. No one could replace him. The man simply kept his mouth shut, not bothering to speak to her for fear that she would be angry. By the way, you still haven't told me your name. Feng Ruqing paused and continued, Forget it. I'm not interested in knowing your name. You are a sword soul now, and I'll call you Little Soul, and the black sword will be named Little Sword. After hearing the name Feng Ruqing had given to him, the man was sad, but her last sentence made him feel relieved. Oh, fortunately, she didn't call me Little Sword. You'll stay here from now on. It's time for me to wake up. Otherwise, my state preceptor will be worried. Little Soul became a little anxious after he heard that Feng Ruqing was leaving. You can't leave. What should I do here? You can't leave me in this place forever. He had come to take her body, but he had turned into a sword soul instead. Feng Ruqing did not answer his questions. Little Soul's anxious voice echoed in the sea as he followed Feng Ruqing from behind. Suddenly, he froze as he saw a handsome man appear in front of them. The man was dressed in white, with long white hair and a silver line between his eyebrows. He was like an immortal with a demonic charm. Even the sea breeze had suddenly disappeared after he had appeared in front of her. His eyes were clear, but with endless sadness, and his gaze was fixed upon Feng Ruqing. Idiotically, with an endless sentiment. Just like a foolish man. Feng Ruqing was startled. State Preceptor? No. This guy looked exactly like State Preceptor. But my State Preceptor looks like an immortal while he, on the other hand, looks like an immortal and demon at the same time. Like a poppy, he was breathtakingly beautiful. And dangerous. Nan Chang Feng. Little Soul gritted his teeth. This little sidekick is such a bastard. He always joins the Ninth Emperor in bullying me. Such an annoying couple. Feng Ruqing stared at the man in front of her. Me for extra chapters. The grief in his eyes was like a sword, piercing into her heart. I've seen you before when I was in danger, trying to save my mother. You were also the one who had appeared and stopped the violent force in my body for me. Feng Ruqing walked toward the man. Are you my state preceptor? The man did not say anything. He continued looking at her as if he were an idiot. Feng Ruqing gently caressed the man's brow, wanting to brush away his grief, but the moment her fingers touched the man, boom, Her head felt like it was about to explode. Your name is Nan Changfeng? That's a lovely name, and since you are now homeless, will you come home with me? Changfeng, I'm here. Of course he'll take you with me. No matter what happens later, don't let go of my hand. I have to take you back. In this life, my only regret is that I didn't sleep with you. Changfeng, if we can't get out this time, I promise I'll marry you in the next life. No one can harm him. If anyone dares to touch him, I will make the city pay with blood, and I will bring chaos to the world. Nan Changfeng, I haven't slept with you yet. Who has allowed you to die? If you die, I'll kill their whole family for you. I'll go back in time to find you. I'll abandon the world for you. Nan Changfeng, you've always said you want to be better than me, so I'll give you one more chance. In the next life, you must be stronger than me and come back to me. If you keep me waiting too long, I don't want to sleep with you anymore. Nan Changfeng, how can you leave me alone in this world? There are many beauties in the world, but no one is as good as you. Those words, they were flooding into her mind. It felt like she had gone through hell. They came from far away and rang in her mind for a long time. Feng Ruqing withdrew her hand and pressed her head hard, trying to recall all the things that she had forgotten. However, the man in front of her, who was looking at her affectionately, gradually disappeared, as if he had never existed. At the same time, Nanxian opened his eyes slowly. His face glowed under the cold moonlight. Master, how is Princess? Qing Zhu asked anxiously. My Xiaoqing is strong, and no one can hurt her. Oh? Qing Zhu was relieved and asked again, where's the soul that wants to take over Princess' body? Is the soul gone? Fortunately, Princess is stronger than him. Otherwise, that man might take over Princess' body and seduce girls. After all, Princess is so charming to girls. Nanxian glanced at Qing Zhu coldly. I only know that Qing'er is fine, but I don't know what exactly happened there. Not everything that my main soul has seen is known to me, but... He paused. There's one thing I'm sure of. You're going to be a snake soup? Qing Zhu was speechless. I'm just concerned about Princess. Why is Master so cruel to me? Nanxian ignored Qing Zhu as Feng Ruqing had already woken up. She rubbed her temples, trying to ease the headache. She then slowly opened her eyes and saw a man as handsome as an immortal. State Preceptor. Feng Ruqing suddenly got up and hugged Nanxian tightly. Her arms were very strong. She was just afraid that she would lose him. Her embrace somewhat suffocated Nanxian a little, and he felt like his bones were about to break. However, seeing Feng Ruqing like this, he did not stop her and gently patted her back. What's wrong? I don't quite remember exactly. Feng Ruqing lifted her face. I just remember that I think I saw someone who looked a lot like you, and then someone kept shouting a name in my head. A name, me for extra chapters. Nan Changfeng. This name was stuck in her head. Her head ached every time she heard it. Nanxian's fingers trembled slightly, and without moving a muscle, he pulled the woman into his arms, lowered his head, and rubbed his chin against her head. Qing, no matter what happens, I will always be there for you. State Preceptor, Feng Ruqing smiled. Those people have been calling you Nan Changfeng before? Nanxian lowered his eyes and remained silent. Fu Chen and the others all said that I was the 9th emperor. He also once told me that the 9th emperor had a lover. She had left to save her lover, and since then she never came back. Qingya, that's why, when I first saw you, my first thought was that I wanted to sleep with you. Perhaps it was because the 9th emperor didn't get to sleep with Nan Changfeng back then, and in this life, I have inherited her long-cherished dream. She did not know what kind of story the 9th emperor and Nan Changfeng really had. Nan Changfeng's sad eyes have been lingering in her mind for a long time. His love was so deep that he still could not let her go even after death. People said the one who was alive would suffer the most. However, that was wrong. The dead one. He was still grieving as he thought of his beloved being left in the world. Nanxian lowered his head and kissed the girl's forehead. You are Qing, and I am Nanxian. That's all it is. No matter how touching the story of the ninth emperor and Nanchangfeng was, it was only the past. All he wanted to have was just his Qingya, and Feng Ruqing held her chin and smiled. The ninth emperor was so powerful back then, but she failed to sleep with Nanchangfeng. But now I can sleep with State Preceptor, so I am Feng Ruqing, not the ninth emperor. She did not want to be known as the ninth emperor. Even if that person was her past. The past was only the past. All she wanted to do was cherish the present. You've just recovered, so you need to rest first. Don't worry about general manner. Feng Liani can't escape. He stroked her hair gently. I'll find the mute girl for you. All right. Feng Ruqing did feel tired. She lay in the man's arms and quickly fell asleep. The next day, she opened her eyes and yawned languidly. When she turned her head sideways, she found that Nan Xian had already woken up and was not by her side. Only a pair of sad eyes were watching her from beside her. Qing Han. Feng Ruqing was slightly stunned and asked, confused, what are you doing here? Qing Han's mouth fell open, and she almost cried. Mother, ever since you reached King Warrior tier, I feel like I can't control the medium anymore. What? In the past, I couldn't go out only when you locked me there, but now, even when you didn't lock me up, I still can't leave. Feng Ruqing was stunned. Seriously? Usually, Qing Han would be by her side whenever she had any trouble. However, she did not see Qing Han yesterday, and she thought Qing Han was sleeping in the medium. So, how did you get here now? I can only appear after mother is asleep. Oh, Feng Ruqing was still a bit confused. Why don't you go back to the medium, and we'll try to see if you can come out on your own. As soon as Qing Han heard this, she hurriedly took a few steps back, panicked. I'm not going there. I don't want to go to the medium again. Me for extra chapters. Brother Fuqin is so useless. He couldn't even protect mother. If she had been able to appear yesterday, she would not have allowed anyone to take advantage of her mother. She was so strong. Seeing little Qing Han in this state, Feng Ruqing was a little distressed and quickly pulled Qing Han into her arms. All right. You don't have to go there again. Qing Han heaved a sigh of relief after hearing that. However, her small pinkish face was filled with grievances, and her eyes were filled with sorrow. Mother, let me come out to help you in the future, and let Brother Fuqin stay in the medium, please? All right. I'll listen to you. Feng Ruqing smiled and pinched little Qing Han's cheek gently. Little Qing Han smiled brightly and put her small head on Feng Ruqing's belly. Mother, I heard my sister speak. Really? What did she say? It's not very clear. Qing Han leaned his head a little closer. I heard my sister cursing. Cursing? Yeah? Qing Han nodded. My sister is cursing father. Feng Ruqing was speechless. Did the State Preceptor do something to her when she was unprepared? Did he accidentally startle this little brat when he slept with her? Feng Ruqing held her head and rubbed her temples. Mother, Qing Han lifted her cute small head. Sister doesn't seem to like father. She keeps cursing him. Did father do something wrong to her? Feng Ruqing looked a little embarrassed. Well, it might be what happened a few days ago. We tried to make a baby. Qing Han's eyes went blank. Tried to make a baby? Don't you already have a little sister? Why did you still want to make a baby? We might have accidentally disturbed her sleep. It's all right. She won't remember anything after she's born, much less this incident. Feng Ruqing would never have thought that the little brat was cursing because Nan Xian had stopped her from absorbing the spiritual qi. The mainland had lost one talented man. Of course, Feng Ruqing was even more unaware that this little brat was so evil and was holding a grudge. Qing Han, let's go. Let's freshen up and go to General Manor. There are some things that we need to settle with them. General Manor. Tianya could not sleep after Feng Ruqing was taken away by Nan Xian yesterday. His eyes reddened. No one in the banquet hall dared to leave. They simply stood timidly on the side. It was not Tianya who did not let them leave, but the countless spirit beasts were surrounding the banquet hall, making it impossible for them to leave. Feng Liani had almost bled dry, and in one night, she had become so thin and weak that her appearance was quite heartbreaking. Lu Yi kowtowed for a whole night. his head was still on the ground. It was not because he did not want to lift up, but Tian Ya's rage was so overwhelming that there was no way for him to lift his head. "Hey kid," Tian Ya turned around and asked again, "Is my precious granddaughter going to be okay? Is that guy going to save her?" "Mother is strong." Fu Chen lifted his chin proudly. "A mere soul can't hurt her." But, no matter how powerful she was his granddaughter. How could he not worry? Tian Ya's bloodshot eyes turned to look at Lu. "Lu Yi, I'll spare your life if my granddaughter can wake up. But if she never wakes up, I'll crush your bones. I'll kill you." Me for extra chapters. Tian Ya did remember Lu Yi's deeds. Lu Yi followed him for so many years. He would punish him according to military regulations if he made a small mistake. But now, Lu Yi had hurt his granddaughter. No one could smile, forgive and forget after a loved had been hurt and almost died. No matter how important a subordinate was, it was nowhere near as important as a loved one. Lu Yi bit his lip hard. After kowtowing the whole night, his pain was not in the knee but in the neck, that was about to break. But facing General's fury, he did not even dare to breathe loudly, let alone beg for mercy. Feng Lianyi was much calmer. She sneered as she thought that Feng Ruqing couldn't wake up and live in her body again. "Nope. She won't die, but her body will never be hers again." Ha! Thinking of how miserable Feng Ruqing's life right now, Feng Lianyi wanted to laugh out loud. If she could not escape this calamity, she would drag Feng Ruqing and let Feng Ruqing suffer the same pain as her. As for Tian Ya, she had followed him for so many years and had been with him on a few battles. In the end, he still treated her like this. Feng Lianyi laughed sarcastically. Perhaps today's ending was something she had not expected anyway. "Feng Lianyi, you still don't know your mistake by now?" Tian Ya's gaze toward Feng Lianyi became more and more disappointed. He took Feng Lianyi back then and kept her with him only because he felt pity for her. But after this girl had grown up, she started to reveal her selfish and mean nature. He had taught her a lesson and scolded her. She was so well behaved in front of him, but behind his back, she was so vicious. Grandfather Tanya, Helian Yu stood up from her chair and sneered. She never learned from her mistakes. Never. The same goes for Feng Lianqing. Feng Lianqing's legs trembled in fear, looking up at Helian Yu. Helian Yu clenched her fists tightly, and her eyes were filled with anger and hatred. Yes, she hated Feng Lianqing this time. Feng Lianqing had listened to her early on and kicked Feng Lianyi out. There would not have been what happened today, and Xiao Qing's life would not be in danger. She could not do anything but wait for her here. Tian Ya withdrew her gaze and turned to Feng Lianqing, scaring Feng Lianqing so much that he could barely stand. Master, listen to my explanation. I'm innocent. Grandfather Tian Ya, Feng Lianqing is also responsible for what has happened to Xiao Qing. Helian Yu's small face was filled with anger. I was so foolish back then, so fond of Feng Lianqing. Feng Lianyi had deliberately sent someone to frame Xiao Qing in front of me, saying that Xiao Qing was seducing Feng Lianqing. My Xiao Qing is such an excellent woman. Why would she have fallen in love with brother Lianqing? If I hadn't already known Xiao Qing, I would have hurt her as Feng Lianyi wished. Xiao Qing is so beautiful, and she has such a good-looking and excellent husband. She doesn't want Feng Lianqing. It's only me being crazy about him for years. In the end, he chose Feng Lianyi and me for extra chapters. But Feng Lianqing didn't even listen to me. He said Feng Lianyi was innocent. If we had kicked Feng Lianyi out back then, Xiao Qing would have been fine at all. Helian Yu turned her head to look at Feng Lianqing. She walked toward the man angrily. Her voice was no longer as shy as before. Instead, it carried rage. If it weren't for you, Feng Lianyi would not have the chance to hurt Xiao Qing. It's all your fault. I hate you. Feng Lianqing was slightly startled. He raised his eyes and met the young girl's eyes that were filled with anger. The young girl's gaze was like a needle that pierced his heart. He had no intention of being in a relationship all these years and had always wanted to keep Helian Yu away from him, but now he felt so uncomfortable. Perhaps he just wanted Helian Yu to stop chasing after him, but he did not want her to hate him. The corners of Feng Lianking's mouth twitched. He wanted to say something, but all the words seemed to be stuck in his throat, unwilling to come out. Hee, Feng Liani sneered. She covered her broken arm and stood up from the ground with sarcasm in her eyes. Helian you, don't you understand yet? Feng Lianqing never cared about you. Since just now, Feng Lianqing had not said a single word on her behalf. If Feng Lianqing had been willing to plead for her, perhaps Tianya would not have broken her arm. Just because he had done nothing, it made Feng Lianya's heart fill with hatred. She was suffering, and she wanted Feng Lianqing to suffer too. He owed it all to her. You shut up. Feng Lianqing was furious and looked sideways at Feng Liani. Feng Liani sneered. Helian you, Feng Lianqing will always trust me, not you. If it weren't for the fact that Feng Ruqing is General's granddaughter, who do you think he would be on the side of now? Do you think he would care about you? Funny, you've always been so bad for him. He said from the start that he would rather believe one word of my argument than 100 of yours. Feng Liani. Feng Lianqing clenched his fists tightly. If you speak nonsense again, don't blame me for being rude. I'm already in this state. What more do I have to be afraid of? Helian you can ask these people, who in this world would like someone like you? You think Feng Ruqing is the best in the whole world just because she's been nice to you. This shows how much you lack affection. Snap. Feng Lianqing raised his hand and slapped Feng Liani. Feng Lianya's broken arm was already hurting beyond everything, so she could no longer feel the pain on her face. Her hair fell in disarray. 5 fingerprints were left on her pale cheek, which soon turned red. Hee, a low laugh, accompanied by that mocking voice, echoed through the hall. Am I right? Feng Ruqing treated her nicely because she felt pity for her, and Helian Yu was so after her. A girl without a father and loved by no one. Everyone hates you, Helian Yu. The banquet hall was silent. In fact, what Feng Liani said was true. No one in Wushang City liked Helian Yu. She was too overbearing, and she often fought with other people. There were countless young masters and young ladies in the city who had been beaten up by her. But no one dared to touch her because Helian Yu's grandfather was the old master of the Helian family. Helian Yu's eyes were red as she bit her lip hard. Those people had feuded with her a long time ago. They looked down on her for being an orphan. She had her grandfather backing her up, so why did she have to be afraid of them? She could not stand when those people talked bad about her and tried to snatch Feng Lianqing from her. That was why she beat them up. Me for extra chapters. So what if she was arrogant? Because of her arrogance, no one in Wushang City had dared to call her fatherless or motherless again. One could not just stand still when being bullied by others. That was why she beat them up until they were too scared to bully her again. Helian Yu, Feng Ruqing is only pretending to like you. No one in this world will truly treat you as a friend. Boom. Suddenly, a powerful force came from the doorway and landed violently on Feng Lianya's body, sending her flying out like an arrow from a string. Her body was already so weak. After crushing against the wall again, she spat another mouthful of blood, unable to say a word anymore. The crowd turned to look at the entrance of the banquet hall. The morning light was so bright. A red dress stepped in through the door overbearingly. The woman was so beautiful. Her big belly did not affect her beauty but made her look even more stunning. She had an overbearing aura that was a little suffocating. Not to mention the men present, even the girls could not help but be amazed by her beauty. What do you mean in pretending to like her? Her gaze passed through the crowd and landed on Feng Liani, who was covered in blood. Feng Liani raised her head and looked at the women dressed in red in horror. She trembled as she bit her lip hard. Impossible. There's no way Feng Ruqing is still alive. This person is not Feng Ruqing. It must be that soul that has possessed her body. Helian Yu seemed to be worried about this too and stood a short distance away, looking at Feng Ruqing timidly. She was a little afraid to step forward. Her eyes were full of worry. Xiaoqing? Is she Xiaoqing? Or maybe it is another person, until the man in a snow-colored robe followed, shielding her from the dazzling morning light with his hand. He pulled her into his arms and smiled gently. Ching, why are you walking so fast? It was only at this point that Helian Yu heaved a sigh of relief. She knew Nan Xian. He would not be close to that woman if she were not Feng Ruching. Feng Liani trembled. Her heart felt like it was tightly squeezed by a hand, and it felt somewhat difficult to breathe. Why is she still alive? Why has God been so kind to her? Tianya looked at the woman walking in through the door, tears suddenly falling from his eyes. Thank God, she's safe and sound, otherwise he would never be able to forgive himself in his life. Lu Yi was also visibly relieved the moment he saw Feng Ruching. Fortunately, nothing happened to her, so, will General forgive me? Feng Ruching sneered as she walked toward Feng Liani. Tiske, who did this to Feng Liani? Even your arm is broken. The crowd somehow felt that Feng Ruching was enjoying this scene. It's so cruel. We should be gentle. Gentle me for extra chapters. The little fatty, who heard this, was a bit stunned, and he suddenly recalled the day he first met Feng Ruching. She also said to be gentle with him, but in the end, she just hung him up and smacked him hard. This woman could never be gentle. Lu Yi's eyes lit up and hurriedly crawled in front of Feng Ruching. Young lady, Maiden Liani doesn't know anything before she offended young lady. Please let her go. Feng Ruching glanced at Lu Yi coldly. You're quite annoying, but I have a friend who wants to meet you. What? Lu Yi was stunned. A friend? Who is it? Little soul. Feng Ruching called faintly. As soon as her voice fell, a soul suddenly appeared in front of her. Feng Ruching just realized that little soul did not have to stay in the black sword. He could appear at any time, but because of the black sword, his strength was limited and Feng Ruching still could not take the black sword out of her dantian. Lu Yi. The man's eyes reddened as soon as he saw Lu Yi. It could be said to be a meeting for enemies. The atmosphere was filled with anger. I will kill you. I will kill you. He roared and lunged at Lu Yi. If it was not for this bastard Lu Yi, he would not have met the 9th Emperor again and he would not have to become a sword spirit. Lu Yi was dumbfounded, staring dumbly at the man rushing toward him. Before he had time to react, a sword light had already pierced his chest. He looked down and saw that there was a large hole on his chest as blood spilled from it. Soon, his body fell backward with a thud, into a pool of blood. The others were also dumbfounded. No one had thought that this soul that had been screaming to kill Feng Ruching last night had been subdued by her in the blink of an eye. Of course, the others were shocked, but for Feng Liani, it was a bit too much for her to bear. Her eyes stared wildly at Feng Ruching, and her voice was hysterical. Why does God always favor you so much? You have such a perfect husband and even a general's granddaughter. Why should you even own this soul? Why is God so unfair? One Feng Ruching lowered her eyes and smiled. No. It's because God is fair that he makes you like this. Feng, are you Ching? I've told you, don't shout my name like a crazy woman. I don't like women. Feng Liani was so angry that she almost fainted. Her face sunk, and her eyes were filled with hatred as she stared at Feng Ruching. Ching? An old voice came from behind Feng Ruching. Feng Ruching turned her head. She stared at the old man for a moment and suddenly said, Oh, aren't you the old master who exchanged the jade for my wine to drink? This time, Feng Ruching no longer called him an old man as she did before. Tianya was a little anxious. What old master? I'm your grandfather. Didn't that bastard Feng Tianyu tell you about me? I'll kill him later. Actually, from the moment Feng Liani took out the jade stone, Feng Ruching had already guessed some things in her heart. There is no such thing as a coincidence in the world, and that jade necklace is proof that the old man is Tianya. Now all her guesses were right after hearing Tianya's words. He has mentioned you. Tianya smiled. Is that brat complaining about me all day long? Did he think I left Lu Yun Kingdom to him and go travel on my own? No, Feng Ruching shook her head. He doesn't have time to complain about you, me for extra chapters. No time? Tianya was shocked. Is he busy with the kingdom's affairs? Impossible. Father has been busy looking for mother all these years, and he has never had a good day. He almost lost his life. Tianya frowned. What happened? I'll tell you after we've settled things here. Feng Ruqing turned to Feng Lianyi, smilingly. Feng Lianyi, you don't have to worry. We're all civilized people. We don't fight and kill every day. Somehow, after hearing these words, the little fatty could not help but tremble. He subconsciously hid behind the Empress. The pretty sister is more frightening and fierce when she talks about being civilized. What are you going to do? Feng Lianyi gritted her teeth to endure the pain. Feng Ruqing squatted down and smiled. I'm a woman. What can I do to you? I've always been reasonable, so, boom. Feng Ruqing lifted her foot and kicked Feng Lianyi, crushing her against the wall. The entire wall caved in, proving just how powerful her kick was. Feng Lianyi coughed out a mouthful of blood. Her face was twisted in agony. She was already severely injured, and no longer even had the strength to speak. However, Feng Ruqing did not stop. In a flash, she was already in front of Feng Lianyi, picking her up from the ground, and bringing her knee to Feng Lianyi's abdomen. Feng Lianyi spurted out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground helplessly. Of course, all of this was just the beginning. Countless vines suddenly appeared on the ground, hanging Feng Lianyi in the air, and those vines were like whips, violently snapping at her body. Feng Lianyi, who clearly had no strength left, stared at Feng Ruqing fiercely, as if she was using all her strength to show her rage. Feng Ruqing, you will get your retribution sooner or later. She did not understand why Feng Ruqing tortured her to such an extent. Feng Ruqing stared at Feng Lianyi and smiled. I'll ask you a question, and if you answer me truthfully, I'll let you go. Feng Lianyi gritted her teeth as her eyes were filled with resentment and bitterness. Feng Ruqing continued, I heard Feng Lianyi mention that you are an orphan? Oh, Feng Lianyi laughed. Orphan or not, this matter has nothing to do with you. Feng Ruqing, I wouldn't let you go even if I were a ghost. Feng Ruqing shrugged and sighed lightly. As expected, Feng Lianyi hated her so much, and she would rather suffer such torture than answer her correctly. Since that was the case, then there was nothing she could do about it. Swish. Countless long swords appeared in the air, floating in front of Feng Ruqing. All of these long swords were filled with a faint coldness that was so frightening. Since you don't want to answer my question, then I can only dash boom. Me for extra chapters. Before Feng Ruqing could finish her words, a powerful force suddenly exploded behind her and headed toward her. Qing. Tian Ya's face changed dramatically. He just wanted to go to Feng Ruqing's side, who knew that there was a man who was one step faster than him who had pulled Feng Ruqing to his side. The force was like a long sword, cutting off all the vines behind Feng Ruqing, causing Feng Lianyi to fall from midair. A woman in a long blue dress leaped in swiftly and dragged Feng Lianyi to her side. The woman veiled her face, but Tianya somehow felt that this woman's fragrance seemed familiar, as if he had smelled it somewhere before but could not recall it. Amid his hesitation, the woman in blue dress had already rushed outside of the banquet hall with Feng Lianyi. Her palms were so strong and fierce that she had pushed the guards blocking the doorway in just an instant, and in the blink of an eye, they had lost track of her. Tianya was stunned. A few moments later, fury surged to his face. Someone has dared to come to General Manor to save the culprit. He ruffled his long sleeves and was about to chase after them. However, before he could step out of the banquet hall, a calm voice sounded from behind him, stopping him. You don't need to rush to chase after her. Someone is already following her. Tianya was slightly stunned. He stopped in his tracks and looked at Feng Ruqing, confused. Someone is already chasing after them? When did that happen? Why haven't I seen that? Feng Ruqing yawned languidly. Old master, do you know who Feng Lianyi is? Tianya touched his head blankly. Oh, I remember that she was being chased by the Nan family. The Nan family and I have never dealt with each other, so I rescued her. Regarding her background, it seems like her family abandoned her, but I did not ask much. Anyway, her family has never come for her even after so many years. Feng Ruqing fell silent. Qingya, Why are you asking about her background? Do you want to kill her family? Chinya, if this is what you want to do, just tell me so I can prepare my army and set off with you. Tianya sneered. No, I'm going to dig up her ancestors' graves. Qi Fang, Feng Lianqing, and all the people present were stunned. Tianya was regarded as a man of integrity, but what had happened to him now? He was going to kill Feng Lianya's family only because of the mistakes that she had committed, and he was going to dig up someone's grave. Feng Lianqing supported his forehead, somewhat embarrassed. He did not want to admit that this old man was his master. Little Chinga, I'm glad you're all right. Tianya smiled as he walked toward Feng Ruqing. Suddenly his old face sank. Wait, who the hell got my precious granddaughter pregnant? Nan Xian pulled Feng Ruqing into his arms. It's me. Tianya's face showed mixed feelings. He thought about last night. He was actually scared of this man and had allowed him to leave without daring to chase after them. This was the shame of his life. Did I agree to that? Don't you need my permission to marry my granddaughter? Tianya's face was cold. You brat, take your hands off my precious granddaughter. Nan Xian looked at the girl next to him and smiled gently. My father-in-law has agreed to this, and he couldn't wait to marry Qinger to me. Feng Ruqing was speechless. She only remembered that his father wanted to kill Nan Xian. As expected, after hearing this, Tianya's old face was livid. Feng Tianwu, you bastard. I'll kill him when I go back. He has allowed my granddaughter to get married without even waiting for me. Me for extra chapters. His grandson-in-law had to be the most excellent man to be worthy of his precious granddaughter. He must also be loyal to her. This boy had not passed his test yet, so why did Feng Tianwu agree to this union? However, Qianyo was quite satisfied with Nan Xian's looks. He was quite handsome and powerful. Nan Xian, they had been gone for some time. I don't know if Xiao Zhu has discovered something or not. Let's go. We can follow them. Feng Ruqing laughed coldly. Oh, Xiao Yu will be fine. Tianya knew nothing about this, so they could not count on him anymore. Feng Lianyi hated Feng Ruqing, and she would be happy if Feng Ruqing did not get the answers she wanted. It seemed like Feng Lianyi would never tell her anything. Fortunately, she had a backup plan. Alright, let's go. Nan Xian wrapped his arm around Feng Ruqing's waist and headed out the door. In an instant, they had disappeared in front of the crowd. Tianya slightly frowned. My granddaughter must think that I'm useless. After all, he would not have been able to answer the first question from his beloved granddaughter. Master, you said that Feng Lianyi was being hunted by the Nan family back then. Is it true? The Nan family. They were the most powerful men in this land. No one could beat them. Why would the Nan family hunt down Feng Lianyi? I had a grudge against the Nan family, and when I saw someone being hunted by them, of course, I rescued her. But if I had known that Feng Lianyi would turn like this, I wouldn't have even saved her in the first place. Back then, Feng Lianyi was still young and well-behaved. Every family had its problems, and when Feng Lianyi was kicked out, he could not bear to make her sadder, so he did not ask any questions about her family. He respected her privacy, and he had not even investigated her family history. Perhaps he did not take the people of this mainland seriously. He was unafraid even if he had many enemies because he did not think anyone could plot against him. However, he did not expect Feng Ruqing would appear. At the thought of this, Tianya was a bit frustrated and wished he had never saved Feng Lianyi. Master, shut up. Tianya turned to Feng Lianqing angrily. I haven't settled you yet. If you make any more sound, believe me, I'll kill you now. Have you forgotten the rules here? Feng Lianyi has accused my granddaughter. Even if she is an ordinary citizen, she must be expelled just based on this kind of action. Tianya was a caring grandfather. He would be overbearing and protective only for his granddaughter. But, if it were not about Feng Ruqing, he would remain strict with all the rules. And you? Tianya looked at Qi Fang and smiled coldly. Feng Lianyi had done something wrong. Why didn't you punish her? Me for extra chapters. Qi Fang was startled and somewhat ashamed. Feng Lianyi is from General Manor. I am just. So what if she's from General Manor? Do you think I'm a corrupt and unreasonable old man? She made a mistake that should have been dealt with long ago, and whether or not Qinger is my granddaughter, the fault committed by Feng Lianyi must be severely punished. It was because these people had always let her off the hook that she became so daring to break the rules. So much so she had almost harmed his precious granddaughter. Qi Feng shut his mouth. Under Tian Ya's monstrous rage, he was too wimpy to say a word. Old housekeeper. Tian Ya's face was cold. Is that bastard Jia Xian still around? The old housekeeper trembled in fear when Tian Ya shouted his name but was relieved after hearing the question. General, that bastard refused to tell us how he could escape to Tsangyu mainland. So, I am still keeping him around. One would lose all his strength if he used Jia Xin's method to go to Tsangyu mainland. Therefore, Jia Xian would never tell them, and he would prefer to be tortured and die. Bring him to me later. Tian Ya paused. A cold light flashed on his eyes. And send someone to check Feng Lianyi's background. My granddaughter wants to know about it. Then I'll find out for her. Yes, General. The old housekeeper bowed and was about to leave. Wait. Tian Ya opened his mouth again. The old housekeeper trembled again and stopped in his tracks. He turned back with a pale face. Is there anything else, General? What did you do yesterday? Why didn't you say a word when Feng Lianyi took out a fake jade stone, and you had watched her bully others? If anything happens to my granddaughter, I will kick you out of General Manor. The old housekeeper's face stiffened. He knew that General would definitely settle the scores with them. General, I didn't know Feng Ruqing was the young lady. Feng Lianyi was a member of General Manor. I was afraid people would look down on General Manor, so... He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. His voice trembled. Tian Ya sneered. Now people have lost respect for General Manor. It's all because of you. Get out of here immediately. If you can't find Feng Lianyi, don't ever wish to come back, and the same goes for you. He turned his head and glared at Feng Lianqing. Feng Lianqing was too scared to say anything, only hoping to leave this place. Somehow, seeing Feng Lianqing's miserable looks, Helian Yu could not help but smile happily. Who asked this bastard to hold Feng Lianyi's back? Now he's being punished, right? You deserve it. Feng Lianqing also saw the flicker of pride in Helian Yu's eyes. He was a bit dumbfounded. Back then, whenever his master was scolding him, Helian Yu would always come and protect him. This time, he felt that he no longer had a place in Helian Yu's heart. Not as much as in the past, outside of Wushang City. The woman dressed in blue stopped and threw Feng Lianyi, who was already half dead, onto the ground. Her face was cold and expressionlessly. Feng Lianyi, I just left Wushang City for a few days, but you've given me so many troubles, and I have almost exposed myself in front of Tian Ya. The wind lifted her veil, revealing that delicate face. Her gaze was fierce. As soon as Feng Lianyi left General Manor, she felt her mind was in a mess, and she had almost fainted from the pain. If it were not for the bumpy journey, she would have been unconscious long ago. Seeing that Feng Lianyi was in pain and unable to speak, the woman reached out and pulled out a piece of spirit herb from her lapel and shoved it into Feng Lianyi's mouth. Me for extra chapters. Did it? Feng Lianyi swallowed the pills with a grunt, and the pain started to ease quite a bit. However, her broken arm was still hurting. But I didn't do it on purpose. Besides, I didn't expose you, right? Feng Lianyi's voice was a little weak, drifting away with the breeze. The woman sneered. If I hadn't appeared in time, who could have guaranteed that you would not confess before you died? Her rescue was so smooth that she could not even believe it herself. There was also a hint of hidden uneasiness in her heart. Feng Lianyi pursed her lips. This woman doesn't trust me at all. Since Tian Ya was so protective of Feng Ruqing, then why should she expose her? Tian Ya would still kill her either way. I didn't expose you because now, I want to destroy General Manor, too. Feng Lianyi raised her eyes. The depths of those eyes were filled with resentment and anger. The woman laughed sarcastically. Unfortunately, you're no longer useful to me. I'll spare your life as you're quite obedient, but your stupidity will eventually get you into trouble. She had warned Feng Lieni more than once to stay away from Feng Ruqing, but Feng Lieni had ignored her warnings and caused many troubles. She just never expected that Tianya would have a granddaughter. You don't care about me anymore? Feng Lieni panicked and grabbed the woman's sleeve. You can't leave me alone. I have nowhere else to go now. My father is so busy with that vixen. He won't even care about me. The woman pushed Feng Liani's hand away impatiently. Isn't that old master of the Duan family protecting you? No matter what, Duan Qiong wouldn't dare to disobey the Duan family's old master's orders. You'd better go back to them. Feng Liani's face was pale, trembling. Grandfather is helping me, but I'm just a girl. The most important person in the Duan family is my brother. Besides, the Duan family is still keeping my mother because they thought Tianya is protecting me. Her grandfather had tried every possible way to make her father agree to marry her mother back then because her mother was her grandmother's niece, and both families were close. Her grandparents had deliberately set them up, causing her mother to become pregnant before they married. However, her father still could not forget that vixen. The good thing was that the vixen left his father, and later, her grandfather had threatened to kill that vixen, making it impossible for that bitch and her child to return to the Duan family again. After that vixen had left, she thought her mother could marry her father, but he still rejected her. Her grandfather had no other choice than let her mother enter the family as a concubine. She did not marry him, so she could only be a concubine. Not long after, her mother's family lost their political power, and they needed to rely on the Duan family. Her grandfather had an obsessive desire for power. He turned against her father to satisfy her mother's family, but he refused to help them and reunite with her father when they lost their power. Fortunately, she had met the woman in front of her. She was the one who sent her to Tianya. Me for extra chapters. Back then, when Tianya was in the limelight, her grandfather had the intention to befriend him. He was even more eager to get close to Tianya after he knew Tianya had reached King Warrior tier. Hearing that she was treated as a young lady in general manner, her grandfather had again forced her father to marry her mother. Therefore, if they knew Tianya had kicked her out of general manner, would the Duan family still treat her nicely? Don't leave me. I can't go back to the Duan family. My father is so crazy about that vixen. He's been trying to find his bastard illegitimate child all these years and doesn't care if I live or die. The woman frowned. That mute is your father's legal wife. If her child is a bastard, what are you? Feng Lieni stiffened, annoyed. Don't lecture me in such a tone. Don't think I don't know that. You like Tianya, and you've confessed to him back then. However, he rejected you, and that's why you hate him so much. You want to kill him, but you can't beat him. What are you talking about? The woman shouted harshly, don't speak nonsense or I'll rip your mouth off. Oh, have I said anything wrong? No matter how well you hide it, your voice is different every time you mention him. Do you like Tianya's old face? Or his status? Who do you think you are? You're only a lovesick woman, so who are you to lecture me? Sniff. The woman slapped her so hard that her face was swollen like a pig's head. Shut up, Feng Lieni. Who the hell are you to lecture me? If I hadn't brought you out of Yunhuan Kingdom back then, do you think you would have a good life all these years? Can a bastard like Duan Qiong let you enjoy living like a noble young lady in the Duan family? You and your mother will be kicked out of Duan Manor once your grandfather and your father reunite. Feng Lianqing sneered. You're wrong. Grandfather can never make peace with my father as long as that vixen is still alive. Father hated him, and father would never forgive him. If I was in the Duan family, even if grandfather didn't love me as much as he used to, at least, I wouldn't suffer like now. After all, my Duan family is one of the great families with imperial blood in Yunhuan Kingdom. Feng Lieni lifted her chin, trying to make herself look arrogant, not yielding to this woman. Suddenly, a voice filled with excitement interrupted their conversation. The Duan family of Yunhuan Kingdom? This time, I've found out such important information. I wonder how the princess will praise me. I'm sure she won't threaten to make me into snake soup again. Feng Liani stiffened. She lowered her head and followed the voice. In a split second, a snake was seen coming out of her dress. It was a green snake that looked slippery and disgusting, giving her goosebumps. Qingzhu smiled. I want to thank you for telling me this information. So the Duan family is a part of Yunhuan Kingdom's imperial family. It's not in vain that I've been hiding for so long. I almost died because of your smell. How many days has it been since you last taken a bath? Hearing Qingzhu's mocking words, Feng Liani should have been furious, but she was so frightened that her eyes widened, her body trembled, and her face was incomparably pale. Why is this snake on my body? Me for extra chapters. Feng Liani screamed and threw up her hand, throwing off the slippery Qingzhu. Qingzhu rolled a few times and landed on the ground. It shook its muddled head and looked back at them. It then turned around and tried to escape. The woman's face changed dramatically. She absolutely could not let this green snake escape and expose her secret to Tianya. Therefore, she did not have time to settle the score with Feng Liani. She moved as fast as the wind to chase after the snake. Qingzhu turned back and saw the woman was chasing after it. Qingzhu was so scared that it hurriedly ran away, crying, "Master, princess, come and save me. Bad people are trying to make me into snake soup. Save me." Qingzhu panicked. No matter how fast it was, it still could not match the woman's speed. I should not carelessly expose myself just now. I should have waited until this woman has left before appearing. A weak chicken like Feng Liani can't do anything to me. But didn't this woman and Feng Liani turn against each other? Why are they still chasing me? I've not married and become a parent yet. I don't want to be a bowl of snake soup on the human table. A murderous aura filled the entire forest. Just as the woman appeared in front of Qingzhu, a surge of powerful force suddenly came fiercely from the front and turned into countless swords, attacking the woman. The woman sidestepped the attack. She raised her head and saw a man in a white robe not far away. Her face instantly sank behind the light veil. The man in white robes was as handsome as an immortal, and there was a stunning red-dress woman next to him. The two of them were like an immortal couple, standing together perfectly. "You're lucky today." Her cold and stern gaze swept toward the scared little snake as she sneered. "I'll give you this woman, Feng Liani. I shouldn't have saved this woman if I knew she was so stupid." As soon as she said these words, the woman immediately turned around and fled away. "Qing, you wait for me here." Nan Xian's eyes sank. His white robes flapped in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, the man had disappeared. The forest fell silent. The breeze carried warmth, but it made Feng Liani's heart grow cold. Her face was pale as she bit her lip and looked at Feng Ruqing resentfully. Qingzhu went to Feng Ruqing and cried pitifully, "Princess, you've finally come. I was almost made into a snake soup by this little bitch. You have to kill this little bitch for me." Feng Ruqing raised her hand and grabbed Qingzhu with her hand. She raised her eyes, gazing down at Feng Liani. Feng Liani sneered. "Feng Ruqing, I was unlucky to have fallen into your hands. Do you think you are stronger than me? Ridiculous. You're only strong because you're Tian Ya's granddaughter, and if his granddaughter were me, I would definitely be better than you." Tian Ya was a great, strong man, and Feng Ruqing had inherited his talent. However, if Feng Liani were his granddaughter, she would become more excellent than Feng Ruqing. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing's long hair fluttered in the wind as she walked toward Feng Liani. "But the person who grew up with Tian Ya is you. The one who has been taught by General Tian Ya is you, and the one who can freely enter the spirit herb store is also you. Everyone in General Manor has treated you well, so what makes you think you can be better than me?" Feng Liani laughed sarcastically. "I just don't have that old man's bloodline. I was useless until I was 16. Feng Ruqing stopped and looked at Feng Liani expressionlessly. "My life was so horrible. I was fat and ugly, but fortunately I did have good luck." It was because she had good luck and met Qing Han and Fu Chen to turn her life around. "So, Feng Liani, What makes you think that you can be stronger than me if you were his granddaughter? Feng Ruqing smiled faintly. My grandfather is quite good in all other aspects, but not a good judge of character. But it doesn't matter. He is my grandfather, and I won't let anyone humiliate him even if that person was raised by him. In an instant, countless sword lights appeared and attacked Feng Lian. Feng Lian's eyes widened, and fear grew in her heart. She turned around and tried to flee, but she could not escape the sword lights no matter how fast she was. In an instant, it drenched her in blood, and the bright red blood poured from the wounds, staining the ground. Feng Lian turned back, staring at Feng Ruqing. Her eyes were filled with deep hatred, as if she wanted to carve the woman's name who had caused her to die so tragically into her mind, never to be forgotten. However, in the end she fell and was never able to get up again. Feng Ruqing looked down at Qing Zhu, which she was carrying in her hands. Xiao Zhu, what did you find out? She narrowed her eyes, her gaze threatening, and if Qing Zhu dared to say it had not heard anything, she would also dare to choke it to death. Princess, would you make me into snake soup if I said I didn't know anything? Qing Zhu lifted its small head. It's a bit troublesome to rip out Feng Lian's soul and question it. So, the woman's fierce eyes made Qing Zhu tremble in fear. I'm just joking. I've got a lot of information from Feng Lian. That's why they wanted to kill me. Feng Ruqing put the snake down and asked indifferently, tell me, who exactly Feng Lian is? She came from the Duan family of Yunhuan Kingdom. I've heard that the Duan family is related to the imperial family of Yunhuan Kingdom. It should be quite easy to find them. Yunhuan Kingdom? It seems somewhat familiar. It seems that the prince who came to General Manor to look for Feng Lian is from Yunhuan Kingdom. Little Guagua, phew. Little Pot flew over, buzzing around Feng Ruqing. Little Guagua, spit that guy out. Buzz. The lid blew off, and a young man was spat out of the pot. This young man no longer had his initial arrogance, and even though his eyes were very bright, there was also a bit of submission in them. Master, he was so respectful. Feng Ruqing was stunned. She looked at the pot blankly. You've tamed him, me for extra chapters? Buzz. Little Pot flew around Feng Ruqing excitedly, as if it was waiting for her praise. Feng Ruqing stroked her chin. It seems that this prince is just a bit bad-tempered and rude. He's a bit ugly, but not so stubborn. Little Pot could only tame someone like him. However, if that person were as stubborn as Feng Lian, even if Little Pot became stronger, there would be no way for her to submit to Feng Ruqing. What's your name? Feng Ruqing raised her eyebrows and turned to the prince. The prince replied respectfully, Master, my name is Lin Xuani. Feng Ruqing was slightly startled. Such a gentle name. It doesn't fit him. Oh, then do you know the Duan family of Yunhuan Kingdom? The young man's expression was still respectful. Master, the Duan family is a family under my father. He's not an officer in the imperial court, but he's still one of the great men among the families. Then do you know who Feng Lian is in the Duan family? Feng Lian? Lin Xuani looked confused. Isn't she Tian Ya's servant? What connection does she have to the Duan family? I haven't heard of her. Feng Ruqing's eyes sank. Feng Lian left the Duan family when she was a child. Do you know of any missing girls in the Duan family? This thing, Lin Xuani frowned and thought. I remember that Duan Qiong of the Duan family once had 2 daughters. One of them was his real wife's child, but the Duan family did not accept her as their daughter-in-law. Then, the mother and daughter disappeared. As for the other one, she was the second lattice daughter and was also lost as a child. The people of the Duan family probably knew where she went, but no one has said anything about it. Feng Ruqing turned around and looked straight at Feng Lian in the pool of blood, smiling coldly. Now, you should know that Feng Lian is that second lattice daughter. Lin Xuani was stunned. This little slut Feng Lian is a young lady of the Duan family? Why is a young lady working as a servant in general manner? There's no need for you to know about these things. Feng Ruqing glanced at Lin Xuanyi coldly. You've destroyed general manner, so go back and apologize. Don't forget to tell the old master, Tianya. They'll go find the Duan family in Yunhuan Kingdom and return soon. Yes, master. And change your name. All right, master. Feng Ruqing rubbed her forehead, trying to ease the tension on her head. Xiao Zhu, you go find Nan Xian while I'll go to Yunhuan Kingdom first. If he can't catch that woman, just let her go. She will definitely come out again since she has a grudge against Tianya. Well, wait for her. She must have something to do with the Nan family. With the Nan family's status, they couldn't put their foot down to chase and kill a young girl. Therefore, Feng Ruqing had a hunch that the Nan family hunted Feng Lianyi in front of Tianya was purposely arranged by someone. That person and the woman dressed in blue just now must have known each other. She had to ask Tianya, who he had dealt with from the Nan family at that time. Princess, can I just leave a mark for my master? He will naturally know where to find us when he sees the mark. Qin Zhu grunted. It did not feel comfortable to leave Feng Ruqing alone. It was afraid that she would be seduced by the demonic slut who had taken her soul away. It was better to watch her close. If any little slut dared to seduce its princess, it would poison that slut. All right. When Qin Zhu put it that way, Feng Ruqing was no longer worried that Nan Xian would not be able to find her. She was silent for a moment and looked sideways at Yunhuan Kingdom. Give me the map to Yunhuan Kingdom, me for extra chapters. All right, master. Lin Xuanyi took out a map from his pouch and respectfully handed it over to Feng Ruqing. Feng Ruqing stared at him blankly. You carry a map with you? Yes. The military advisor who led the group here this time has a poor sense of direction and could easily get lost without the map and compass. The military advisor has a poor sense of direction? Feng Ruqing laughed coldly. However, she did not give it much thought and quickly took the map. Xiao Zhu, let's go. General manner. Everyone else had taken their leave except for the imperial family and the Hellion family, who stayed behind. Tianya was dressed in red, holding a cat in his hand lazily. His eyes were cold. Where is the housekeeper? He still hasn't found out who Feng Lianyi's family is? If that old man can't find out about it within 3 days, tell him to not come back again. Feng Lianqing was startled. Master, it's a bit difficult to find that out in 3 days. It will at least take a few months. After all, Land of No Return is so big, and you didn't ask much about her background before. It's impossible to find her in 3 days without any clue. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.